It's very interesting. And when I break it down to that, it's very clear why many people struggle for success, because I think most people's expectations are off. I think that's one of the biggest things in the world.
If you start out from scratch and you don't have a personal brand and you don't have social media and you don't have an Instagram account and you're brand new, you cannot expect to have a top charting show right out of the gate. Just like you cannot expect to do a marathon when you don't train.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was episode number 1256, one easy way to start being more focused. Today, for episode number 1257, the 3 big reasons why people fail. When I am coaching, sometimes I just go off on tangents and somehow things connect in this really powerful way. Other times I say, let me come up with an analogy or an example. And then I say, I don't really have a good one. So let me just go back to what I was saying. This came to me the other day when I was coaching somebody. We've talked many times, and you've heard us talk about this. If Alan calls me up and says, hey, Kev, let's go for a run tomorrow, I'm going to ask a couple questions. What time are we going? Where are we going? And how long is this run for? Because I want to make sure that my expectations are in alignment with my effort. So I was telling somebody that, and I said, really, from my experience, what I've seen, there's really only 2 things that creates failure for people. I said, number 1, it's misaligned expectations. If Alan says we're going for a mile run, I'm going to run differently than I would if we were doing a 5-mile run. My expectations about what we're doing are off. Second part of that, and it's attached to expectations, approach. My approach is going to be off if I think we're running 1 mile and we end up running 5. Alan and I tried to do a 1 mile, 5-minute mile. And
I want to tell that story.
You can tell that story. And so approaching that, it's different. I'm trying to hit a 5-minute mile. I've never done that. My expectations are, it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be super challenging. My approach is I got to run pretty effing hard for all 5 of these minutes if I'm going to do it. And the last one is exhaustion. People that maybe they don't have the right approach. Maybe their expectations are off, but say they get some momentum, they get going. Eventually it gets to the point where maybe you don't want to wake up and do it anymore. Maybe you haven't seen the result that you wanted. Maybe your relationship is strained. Maybe you're broke. Maybe the limiting beliefs have been taking a toll on you and you're just exhausted. And you say, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me. When there's so much left to learn, when you leave the arena, you don't get to learn anymore. So you never know what you would have learned that maybe would have altered your expectations. It would have allowed you to change up your approach. You never know when you leave. That's from my perspective. And again, what do I know? I don't know everything for sure. But from my perspective and what I've seen, it's one of those 3 things, or 2 of those, or all 3 of those. Either the expectations are off, either about the result, the amount of time, the amount of effort, what it'll feel like, whatever it may be. The approach is off, the tactics, the amount of time with the tactics, how the tactics are going to pay off, or just pure exhaustion where you get to the end and you say, you know what, I don't know if I can show up and do that again tomorrow. So ask yourself that question. If you can reflect on your past and you can connect, I don't want to say failures, but if you can connect a few things that didn't go the way you wanted, or you did not get the result that you had hoped for, which one of these was off? Was it the approach? Was it the expectations? Or was it just pure exhaustion that you got to the point where you couldn't show up anymore?
So Kev and I are in the gym all
You're
those years ago.
You're going right to the story, huh?
Mm-hmm. Got it. Very important.
Yeah,
very important story.
Okay.
We're in the gym, and it's a cold winter morning in Worcester, Massachusetts. And we're in a gym called Crunch Fitness. And we've been working out for a solid hour and a half at this stage. I don't know if it was leg day or something, but it was a hard workout.
No, it wasn't leg day. We were just not successful entrepreneurs, so there wasn't a lot to do.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot to do other than lift and talk. And so we're lifting and we're talking. And somehow it comes up running. I don't remember how. Maybe I started running a mile a day or something. I forget. But because I've done spurts of that here and there. And I think I said something about running a 6-minute mile and how that's my goal. Yeah, that's what it was. I started running and I wanted to hit a 6-minute mile. And Kev was like, I could do a 6-minute mile. And I was like, no chance. Now, again, to the principle here, well, the first one is wrong expectations, right? So here's what happened in Kev's brain. I'm an athlete. I'm athletic. I've always been athletic. I've always been good at sports. I can run a 6-minute mile. And I was like, no chance. No chance. So and you were like, of course I could. Absolutely. No problem. So I was like, all right, brother, let's go to the track. So now, granted, it's early in the morning. It's really cold outside. And this was a terrible idea because we had just worked out for an hour and a half. So anyways, we go to the track, WPI, my alma mater, the college that I went to, and really nice track. And I was like, all right, let's do this thing. We're going to do a 6-minute mile. It's terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah, it was the worst.
I think I hit 6:17, and it was like alarming how difficult that was for me. And I'm tall. I'm an ectomorph. I've got long giraffe legs. I should be able to do this. And I also was running pretty consistently at that point. Kev was not.
I hit. Alan hits. What was it? 6:17.
6:17.
I hit the ground. I hit the floor because I was laying in the middle of the track. I think I had maybe a half a lap to go, or maybe 1.5. I don't remember.
I think you had 1.5 laps to go.
Is it 4 around as a mile?
Yeah, 4 around as a mile.
I only made it 2.5.
Maybe it was 3.5.
I think I did 3.5. And on the last one, I was like, I'm going to give it everything I got. And I made it. I remember it was a little past half. And I was like, I think I have asthma maybe still. And I don't know if I can finish it. This might be detrimental to my long-term health.
So what were the 3 things again? Wrong expectations.
Approach, exhaustion.
Approach, exhaustion. Okay, so this is a perfect example of this. Kev had the wrong expectations. He's only 5'6", and running is not necessarily, if you look at long distance runners, they tend to be a little bit taller than that. Mm-hmm. So he had the wrong expectations of his own athleticism and his own height in that case, in the context of running. Again, I'm not making fun of Kev. Okay, number 2, the approach was wrong. You probably didn't pace yourself very well. You probably didn't know how to pace yourself, because when was the last time you timed a mile?
Never.
The answer, never timed a mile. And then the third approach, or the third thing is exhaustion, which you literally got too exhausted to finish. And so that's one of the reasons people fail to achieve the goal. And by the way, when we say fail, that's all we mean. Fail to achieve the long-term outcome. So if you want to start a podcast, or you want to run a marathon, or you want to do a triathlon, or you want to have an extraordinary marriage, whatever it is, usually it comes down to one of those 3, or honestly, all 3 of those are pretty connected. If you have the wrong expectations, you're most likely going to have the wrong approach. If you have the wrong approach, you're going to get exhausted pretty quickly. I do have one other side of this coin. I have a client, his name's Dave, and he did a half marathon this past weekend, or it was either this weekend or the weekend before, I forget which, but he has a Garmin watch, and he is doing triathletes pretty regularly. And so he's training for triathlon, and he always knows like his pace. And if you're a really good runner, you like, okay, I'm doing like a 7-minute pace right now. Okay, I'm on an 8-minute pace. Okay, 6.5, right? And that's kind of why I knew Kevin couldn't run a 6-minute mile, is because I've done it and I know what that takes, and it's brutal. But anyways, so he forgot his watch for the half marathon, because he's just doing the half marathon just on a whim, kind of. But he trains. And he forgot his watch. So he was running next to some of these people, and he was like, what pace are we at? Like, he kept like, hey, what pace are we at? And I guess they said like 6 minutes or 7 minutes or something like that. He's like, okay, good. He's like, they were wrong. So he gets like 10 miles into this half marathon, right? And he is hurting so bad. His feet are like, he's like, dude, the pain that I had to go through, like, and he reads Goggins, and Goggins is a famous for basically massive pain in running. And he was talking about how he was thinking of Goggins and all that. So anyways, he's telling me the story on the call, and he said, you know what's interesting? I ran the best half marathon of time I've ever done, because I thought we were doing a slower pace than we were actually doing. So believe it or not, he actually came in at a better PR. That was a personal best for him on a half marathon, because he didn't know his pace. So believe it or not, that actually was the flip side of this. But here's my point. What if he hadn't stuck with it? What if he had actually gotten exhausted and then quit? And that's kind of my point. No matter what you're doing, if your pace is off, if your expectations are off, if you think you're going to have a successful top charted podcast in 1 year, you're setting yourself up for so much failure. We produce 30 other shows now, and some of them are top charts, some of them are not. It depends on where you start in terms of if you have a huge following and you have a massive Instagram and you have massive social media and you've been in the personal branding game for a really long time, you can have a top charting podcast right out of the gate. I had one client who had a podcast that has more reviews than ours, and she's very early, but she was also far ahead of the personal branding game for a very long time, and also somewhat famous in the greater Boston area. But if you start out from scratch and you don't have a personal brand and you don't have social media and you don't have an Instagram account and you're brand new, you cannot expect to have a top charting show right out of the gate, just like you cannot expect to do a marathon when you don't train. And I think that these 3 reasons people fail, it's almost like you're setting yourself up for failure if you aren't thinking long term. Kevin and I, it was alarming. I mean, at the end of the first year, we only had 1,056 listens. And here we are coming up on 1 million this year. And if we had had the wrong expectations, if we were looking for short-term results, we would have quit. Of course, anyone would have quit with that low of results. And I think it's important to just think longer term, but it's difficult to do that, I think.
It is. It's a challenge.
Hey guys, my name is Jacob Valdellon, and I just finished Next Level Group Coaching. When I joined, I wasn't sure what I was walking into. But during the entire course and the program, I figured out it's not something that I wanted to do, it's something I needed to do. They helped set me on the right path with learning how to do PPTs, peak performance tracking, and every 2 weeks I was gaining new awarenesses and getting a lot more happier, first of all, my health, wealth, and love, but also winning more practically and tactically in business. So if you're looking to upgrade your life and get to that next level, definitely sign up for that group coaching.
It's also, I think, oftentimes people they pay for accurate expectations. I was on the phone with a podcaster the other day, and he said, I'm 2 years in, I'm not seeing what I want. I said, what were your expectations? Like, what did you expect? Just as a question, like, I'm just intrigued. And he told me, and he's like, honestly, I think I want to work with you because I want help. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to help you, obviously, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to help you reset your expectations. That's one of the things I'm going to do. That's one of the things I do. You don't understand. I said this to you today. We were looking at the stats for conscious couples, and
which is my other podcast, by the way. Yeah.
And I said, you're doing, and again, you know this, but I was like, you're doing better than you probably thought. I said, are you doing better or worse than you thought? And you said better. It's like, yeah, that's good. That's important. It's important to know that because that changes the approach, and that changes. It can change the level of exhaustion. If you know you're only a mile away.
Exhaustion is self-esteem and self-confidence, because it's not just that you get exhausted; it's that you no longer believe you can achieve.
Yeah.
When your expectations are off, you no longer believe you can do it.
Yeah.
And when you reset the expectations, you can reset the pace. You can reset the approach. You can hang longer. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's good. I told Kevin this earlier. I said, NLU needs to be set up in a way where we can weather the storm. I want this podcast to be around 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. And not just the podcast, but the whole business. And so we're setting ourselves up for the long run, and we always have been. And that doesn't mean that you have to know for a fact that you want your podcast to exist for the next 50 years. But you have to at least come in with a mentality of, I'm going to weather the storm. I'm going to readjust my expectations as I go. And the reason why Kevin was able to tell me that about Conscious Couples is because he looks at the statistics of all the other shows. Versus if I was looking at only Lewis Howes or Joe Rogan, I would feel terrible about my podcast, which is what most people are doing. Most people look at Joe Rogan, oh, well, I don't have those results. It's like, yeah, but that's the anomaly. Yeah. That's not the norm. That's the most successful podcast in history is Joe Rogan. So if you're comparing to that, you're in so much trouble.
It just affects the approach too, is like, it's just interesting. It's interesting how I think as humans, and again, I am a human, so I've done this many times, we complicate things. There's a lot of things that we just overcomplicate. And I think when you see something like this, okay, what's the approach? Are you taking the right approach, or are you off? Are you off on your approach? If you're off on your expectations, you're most likely off on your approach. If you expect that it's going to happen tomorrow, you're going to, think of it that way. If you have 100 pounds of food and there's some sort of emergency and your expectations are that everything is going to get turned back to normal in a week, your approach is going to be different. You're not going to save as much food, right? Why would you? You think things are going to be back. And if it doesn't go that way, then you have to change your approach again. And then you have to rechange your expectations. And then you have to figure out where am I in terms of exhaustion. And that's why the longer you do something, the better you get, because your expectations get leveled. You have an understanding of what approaches worked, what didn't, what worked well, what didn't work so well. And then you figure out, okay, I've been more exhausted than I am today. I mean, we've had less results and we've been in worse positions. We can keep going at this rate. Like, it's not that bad. All things considered, we're way ahead of where we were. That's kind of the key to sustainability. And then from there, it's okay, how do I set new goals based on my expectations? How do I take a different approach, a better approach? How do I try new things? It's very interesting. And when I break it down to that, it's very clear why many people struggle for success, because I think most people's expectations are off. I think that's one of the biggest things in the world.
That's the question that I have written down. How accurate are your expectations for your own results? And what I would say, and I think this is pretty normal based on all my clients and different people, different businesses, I think in the short term, people tend to think results are going to come way faster. I think in the long term, people end up getting blown away. Like long term. And this is the quote, and it's a Tony Robbins quote that I do love. He says, we drastically overestimate what we can do in a day, but we also drastically underestimate what we can accomplish in a year or 10 years. And so for Kevin and I, same deal. What we could accomplish in 1 year, we massively overestimated. So we came in at 1,056 listens. We thought for sure we could do way better than that. Episode a week, working hard. But in the long term, I have no doubt that we will exceed many of our expectations. But it's important to understand that most people, including you, including Kevin and I, we overestimate what we can accomplish in the short term. But yet we underestimate what we are truly capable of long term. I believe that to be true. I mean, this will be the last thing I share. I was talking to one of our team members recently, and I said, do you remember when we first met? This was 5.5 years ago, probably 5 years ago. And what have you achieved that you never thought was possible 5 years ago? Oh, she was like, I bought a house, I got married, I have a 4.0 in my master's degree. Like, I am achieving my fitness, I'm exercising every single day. She literally is listing off all these things that she didn't even believe was possible back then. And now and I said, okay, here's the key question. What do you not believe is possible now that you're not going for, that in 5 years you're going to realize was totally doable? And she said, I'm going to get my NASM certification. I'm going to start my own personal training business. And we even did the math. I'll go quick about this, but her full-time income, she can replace it with 6 full-time clients. And I said, in 5 years, do you really think that you could, do you think even for a second you couldn't get 5 or 6 clients full-time in 5 years? She's like, I could totally do that. I was like, boom, let's go. That's the problem though. I didn't say 5 days. If it was 5 days, there's no possibility she could do that. 5 weeks even, no way. 5 years, it would actually be pretty easy, if you stick with it. And again, that's really the point I'm trying to make, is if you can stick with it, what you could accomplish would blow you away long term. Yeah.
I did an episode on Podcast Growth U where I shared our numbers and other shows. I anonymously, I didn't say the names of the shows, but I said, this show is year 1. In the first year they had 5,000 downloads. This person's in year 3 and they've had 60,000 downloads total. And I said, this is us. Again, results not typical. You can see that these shows don't have the amount of listens we do. We're results not typical. Don't necessarily expect to get the results we have. It's probably
but
not.
We also do an episode every day.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot that goes into that. But so yes, our approach is different. All right. Our approach is different. So the expectations can be different too. But the only reason I say that is my goal. And I said, I just want to make sure your expectations are right. I just want you to understand that you might be doing better than you think. You might not be doing as good as you think. If that allows you to create a different strategy and a different approach, that's good. That's empowering. Maybe you can get the result you want. So
if people knew that, Kev, they wouldn't be so embarrassed.
I think so.
That's the other thing that's important. In social media, it's like, if you knew how much other people struggle, and this is as a relationship talks coach, if you knew how much other people's relationships, how many people struggle with their intimate relationships rather than the Instagram photos, you wouldn't feel ashamed.
Yeah.
You would realize that you and your partner are actually better than the statistical norm. And that's one of the things we try to do on this show is share the truth with you so that you can say, oh, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who has trouble with that. I'm not the only one who only has 1,000 listens in my first year. Most podcasts probably are between 1 and 5.
If that.
If that, right? So
if that.
It's really important. And social media is so not the truth. It's not the whole truth. That's what I would say. It's not the whole truth.
I would agree. Next Level Nation, if you want the whole truth, come see Alan and I behind the scenes. Many people have seen us behind the scenes, and I like to think we're very much the same exact way we are on the podcast. Probably maybe a little bit more intense because we're talking about maybe more truth behind the scenes. But if you want to join us, Next Level Live 2023, April 1st, Worcester, Massachusetts. We're only taking 50 people. Tickets are $97 a piece. But again, I've said this, I'm going to keep saying this until I'm blue in the face. It's not a speech. It's not a presentation. It's not just Alan and I on stage lecturing for however many hours it is. It's an experience where we're going to be in the crowd and we're going to go around and have groups and you're going to get one-on-one time with us. That's one of the reasons we want to do it this way, because we want to make sure that we get to meet everybody. We're very grateful, but we want to show our gratitude with our actions. So if you're interested, please click the link in the show notes. We would love to see you there.
So last week we had a woman, a listener of ours, and she downloaded both courses. So we have 2 courses on the website. One is a free course called Next Level 5 to Thrive. The Next Level 5 to Thrive. It is clarity, commitment, confidence, consistency, and community. Okay? That's completely free. You can download it. It's pretty intense, actually. It's great. It's Kevin and I in the studio, just fundamentals on fundamentals on fundamentals. Check that out. There's one more course from Next Level Live 2022 that is available, and it's paid. It's $47. So it's very cheap, and not cheap in terms of not valuable, but cheap in terms of affordable. So download those courses, check them out. At very least, you will walk away with something that you have never contemplated before. There's no question that that's going to help dial up your greatness and help you achieve your goals and dreams faster. You will not regret it. And if you do regret it, message Kevin and I, say, honestly, I regret purchasing this course, and we will send you your money back.
Yes, 100%. And this is not like a sales tactic thing. At some point, we were talking about this, and I've been thinking about it. At some point, we're probably going to make the free course a paid course, because honestly, if you're looking for a free course and you download that, and I mean this with all the love, you're probably not going to do the whole thing, because it is quite intense, way more intense than we realized at the time. So at some point, that'll end up being a paid course. So if you are interested and you want it for free, I don't have a date. I don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point that'll most likely end up being a paid one, and then maybe we'll have another free one. I don't know yet, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
We're considering sorry to interrupt you,
you're good.
We're considering doing another course, and we're going to have that be the free course, and it's going to be on building self-belief and self-worth. And then when we do complete that course, which honestly will probably be the next quarter, next 3 or 4 months, we're going to make the current free course into a paid course. So yes, now's your chance to get it for free, and it's a hell of a course. So check that out.
Next Level Nation tomorrow for episode number 1258. It'll be Saturday. Happy Saturday. tomorrow. Are there positive parts to your ego too? So we've talked a lot about the negative sides of ego and how it can hurt you and all that happy jazz, but are there positive sides and how can you use them to your advantage? That is what we will be talking about tomorrow. As always, we love you, appreciate you, grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans, we have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Please reach out